From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, specialty schedule reveal. The ACC lays out the midweek slate. The Noles playing on a Friday. New mock draft, new thoughts, and we look at the defense. Could there be a singular player who, if they live up to their vast potential, could make this team have a super high ceiling for 2024? Wake Up Warchant presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. CPTallybar.com is the website. You can always hit the QR code on your screen. That will take you right to aforementioned website where you can check out the daily lunch specials as well as the social calendar. Hope you had fun at bingo last night, or rather, trivia last night, everybody. Bingo coming up on Thursday. But today's lunch special on Wednesdays is 5-piece chicken wings, the best wings in all of Tallahassee, I say, and French fries. Only $8.99 at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Do check it out. Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminoles sports source. Hit the thumbs up. Leave a 5-star rating and review, please. Or we can earn it if you're in that market to give out your praise, which is fine. We get it. It's cool. So a bit of a uneven show. Corey and I did some instant reaction to the schedule midweek reveal. Again, today at 5 o'clock, the whole schedule, everything, top to bottom, every team, every day, time, not the times, but, who they're playing and where they're playing and when they're playing in terms of the date. That's going to get released at 5 o'clock. Corey and I will be live on YouTube to react to it. But on Tuesday, the ACC, as part of this 3-day reveal, unveiled their specialty games, which is Thursday and Friday. So Corey and I reacted to it in this video that we're going to right now. The specialty schedule, Corey, a.k.a. Thursday and Friday games, which is what we all think of when we hear the word specialty, right?
Right, yeah, of course, yeah.
That dropped today from the ACC, these midweek games. For those like me that harken back to a day where Florida State hosted a team in conference on a Thursday night in Doak Campbell Stadium, magical day against Clemson back in 2002. We're not going to get that. We're not going to get that. Not going to happen. But Florida State will have a specialty game. Corey, what do you think about that? They will take on Duke Friday night game in Durham, week 8, October 18th against Manny Diaz and the Blue Devils, Corey. Only specialty midweek game for the Noles. Maybe conspicuously absent from this list, Corey, Clemson. Thoughts on both of those things?
Well, first, I like the Friday night games more than the Thursday night games. I don't know why, but I do. Just feels more. I didn't like them when they first got introduced, but now I do. The Thursday nights, just Florida State's always struggled with them. It's a shorter week. You're competing with the NFL. Who wants all that? So Thursday nights are devoted to, the MAC, I guess. But that feels like, Aslan, right now, as we sit here talking, we know 3 of their conference opponents. Well, I guess we know 5. We know Clemson is coming at some point, and we know Florida State's going to Miami at another point. But the other 3 games are Georgia Tech in Ireland, Boston College on Monday night, and then Duke at Duke on a Friday night. Well, if one of your road games is at Duke, that seems pretty winnable, doesn't it? Especially first-year coach. New quarterback because the other guy just left. Like that seems like the ACC didn't do Florida State dirty by any stretch. Like you were worried about like Thursday night in Raleigh or something, but no, it's a Friday night I was going to say Friday night at Cameron, a Friday night at Wallace Wade, which is right next to Cameron.
Yeah. Where did that go? There was that the old one? Is this the new? I'm trying to look at the full composite they have, again, of your conference opponents, not necessarily any sort of order. So yeah, Boston College, Cal, Clemson, North Carolina, Duke, Georgia Tech, Miami, SMU. That Georgia Tech game in Ireland will count as a road game. Then, you're playing at Duke on a Friday night. So otherwise you got to go to Dallas, take on the Ponies, SMU, and then Miami. So that's what we do know. Yeah, man, I guess manageable is more or less what you're trying to kind of paint a picture of, or delightful surprise that the ACC didn't really do anything ill-reputed to hurt the Noles.
Now we'll see who that game is the Saturday before, if that's a bye week or if they actually have to play an ACC opponent on whatever that would be, October 12th, and then have a short week to prepare for a road game, which is always harder. But yeah, man, I don't think anybody could be really upset with if you knew you were going to have one of these games. In fact, we talked earlier this week. We thought the whole schedule might be Thursday and Friday night games for Florida State, just for the ACC to really twist the screws in there. But I think Friday night at Duke would be an odd atmosphere, but probably pretty fun, probably pretty festive. And I think there'll be a lot of Florida State fans there. And it might mean something. That might be a very important game. And, that will be the third time at least already that season because, Georgia Tech is week 0. Everybody will be watching that game in Ireland. Then the next game is a Monday night when you're the only game on against Boston College. People will be watching that one. And then this Friday night is you're the only game on. So that's another 3 weeks at least, which you should get pretty big ratings numbers because people are going to be interested in Florida State. And big ratings numbers are appealing when you're maybe trying to get your foot in another conference that wants ratings and a big TV audience. Just a thought.
Also, Mike Norvell's on a bit of a winning streak here. We might have to call him like Hallmark Mike when it comes to holidays and odd day games, right? Like they won the Labor Day contest against LSU in 22, went on a Friday night, beat Louisville.
Yeah.
Black Friday at home against the Gators.
Yeah.
Then 23 taking out LSU again on Labor Day. So he's kind of comfortable in these situations. So we'll take it.
Yeah, even the game they lost in 21, that Monday night game, they had no business being in overtime with that Notre Dame team. That team couldn't even beat Jacksonville State, and they were there in overtime against Notre Dame I think that was a Monday night too. So, he's done a pretty good job with these things. They've usually put their best foot forward in games like this. And again, I just think Duke –
without Riley Leonard, by the way, don't forget, he's Notre Dame now, so they don't have their quarterback.
Well, it's a first-year coach against a guy in his 5th year with an established program. That should not be too challenging a game. I know I'm speaking this 9 months before it happens, but everything on paper right now, that should not be too challenging. And that's nice exposure for your program to go on the road, hopefully get a conference win, and get that much closer to getting in the ACC championship again.
No disrespect to the good folks in Durham, North Carolina. I mean, they got turned up, you could say, against Clemson in that opener this past year. But obviously nowhere near the expectations, nowhere near the roster, as you said, a first-year coach. So when you kind of really start piecing things together, I mean, outside of, I don't know, playing at Wake, there's probably no other more favorable place to be on a Thursday or Friday odd night and playing an away game than Wallace Wade, I would feel like, in this conference right now.
Or Cal? Isn't Cal horrible?
Yeah, here you go. Okay, I guess
maybe they weren't horrible. I feel like they were okay last year. I don't remember. I know they've been horrible. I know their basketball team's horrible. But maybe their football team is better than I remember. But yeah, I honestly thought this might be at SMU. That just had the feelings for me that they would. That seems like an SMU night to play anyway. No offense, Mustangs fans. A Friday night. And it's their first year in the conference. It's a big game. I figured they might want that on a Friday night for some exposure, but no, it's at Duke, where Florida State has never lost.
Yeah. Also, I guess I would think maybe Cal and Stanford would maybe actually pack it out though for Florida State the first time ever, right? Like the first time they are there, there's a bit of a novelty. Duke won't have that same kind of energy and excitement and electricity. So there you go.
I wonder how many times Cal Berkeley has filled their stadium since Aaron Rodgers left. What do you think that number is? Over, under 5? They've had sellouts since then.
I would take the under. I don't even know if the game against Stanford on those years would even pack it out.
Right.
Southern
it might
Cal.
with Stanford fans, but yeah, that's never going to be a tough place to play necessarily. But yeah, man, when you look at those teams, you know who you're playing away. You're playing Duke. Georgia Tech doesn't even count. So now you look at it, you've got 4 home games that we knew about, and then you've got the road game at Duke, which on a Friday night against Duke, that's not all that challenging. And then you've got Georgia Tech on a neutral site. I think SMU has a 25,000-seat stadium. Those road contests just in conference don't fill you with a lot of fear right now as we talk in late January.
When you look at this slate, I guess we're not going to stretch this out too much longer, everybody. But when you look at some of these teams on your screen here, if you're watching the video, and if you're listening to the podcast version of this, Clemson's in-conference slate, home games, Louisville, North Carolina State, Stanford, Virginia, and then away at Tallahassee, at Pitt, at Blacksburg, Virginia Tech, and then at Wake Forest. I like dodging Louisville, and I don't want to try to gas up Louisville too much, but like when we kind of look at this, I don't know if we still think about Clemson being the biggest threat in this conference. But again, if your snake pit game is a Friday night game at Duke, like I feel much better about that than having to play Louisville, your former coordinator coming back, and Tony Elliott in Virginia, and having to go at Lane Stadium, maybe like on a night game when Virginia Tech's kind of juiced up a little bit. Or should I scroll down? We got Louisville on the screen there too. They, probably have about as equal of a schedule as Florida State has. So just kind of pleased thinking about this,
Yeah, you look at Louisville. They brought in a lot of transfers. They were good last year, and then they had the number 1 or number 2 portal class in the country. They're going to be a contender to win the championship. Certainly to get there to Charlotte. I would say them and Clemson and Miami and Florida State. Those are the 4. When you look at the rosters right now in January, are the 4 probably predominant favorites to get to Charlotte. And then like Clemson. NC State's never easy. They're always well coached. That's always a good team. That's always an 8-win team. That's a bowl team. That's not an automatic win. At Virginia Tech, I don't think is an automatic win with the way Clemson's played offense lately. And neither is at Wake Forest because Clawson's a good coach. And they had a down year, and I don't expect them to be that down again this year. So and also they have to go to Florida State. So when you look at that, in Louisville at home, like they have a tougher schedule. Louisville seems to have about this. Louisville probably has an easier schedule than Florida State, except the at Clemson part. But, when you look at those 3 teams in particular, I think Florida State and Louisville have, about the same schedule. I think Clemson has the hardest of the bunch. And then you look at Miami, they have to go to Louisville, and they have Florida State at home. Not that they get great crowds for any of those other home games, so that doesn't really matter. But, yeah, I think Clemson, when you look at it on paper, NC State is the one team that Clemson plays that those other 3 teams don't play. And NC State's a bugaboo, man. They do well. They're a good program. They're a top 20, top 25-ish program that can certainly go into Death Valley and win. Nobody does that anymore, but they could maybe. And Louisville could too.
Again, here's what we know so far. Obviously, Florida State will start the 24 season off in Ireland Saturday, August 24th against Georgia Tech. They will then have a quasi bye week as they get ready for their home opener, ACC opener as well, against Boston College September 2nd. They've got Memphis September 14th. That Duke Friday night game, October 18th. And then you don't have to worry. I was kind of nervous about maybe they'd have to play at Notre Dame that following week, but they don't because that's the November 9th game. Then you've got your favorable FCS matchup the week before the Gators. So, I know you guys did it on what? Do you guys do it on headlines as a breakout video or just about the chance they go 12-0 again?
Well, basically, none of us think that's even 50-50. I think I said 30% chance. They might have been a little bit higher than me. But, yeah, I think when you look at this schedule, and we'll know it all on Wednesday, the 2 big question marks, well, 3, North Carolina's, that's a good team, man. They're going to have a decent offense. They always do. They're not going to be a pushover. North Carolina's never a team you beat by 40. But you're going to want to know where Clemson and Miami line up on the schedule. That's where you're going to want to know. Is Miami going to be a November game again? Is that going to be in between Notre Dame and Charleston Southern? Are you going to have to play at Notre Dame and at Miami back-to-back? I wouldn't. The ACC might have done that. You can't blame them. Will you play at Notre Dame and then Clemson at home? Like it'll be – that's where I want to see is where Miami and Clemson fall on the schedule.
Yeah, because October's wide open other than that Duke game. So we'll see how it all pieces together. Again, that will be 5 o'clock on Wednesday, 5 to 7 o'clock. The ACC will reveal the schedule in its entirety, days, dates. So we'll have that as a live show most likely as well. Corey and I, again, that'll be part of the podcast for your Thursday. Vitamin Energy. Website is vitaminenergy.com. Promo code is Warchant BOGO. Warchant BOGO. Type that into the screen. You get 1 item of equal or lesser value for absolutely free. It's awesome. You get a box, 12 bottles, 24 though when you use the promo code. And it's free, that other half of it. The Vitamin Energy Workout Plus in the rotation this week for me, Corey. Like all the great Vitamin Energy products, it is packed with vitamins and nutrients and 260 milligrams of all-natural caffeine and no zero zip skadoosh, I think might be a word for nothing. Sugar. No sugar, everybody. Yeah, no sugar. Magnesium. I just realized that. This whole time I've been taking Vitamin Energy Workout Plus, maybe I've been sleeping better at night because it's got the magnesium in there. We all need magnesium in our diets. Helps you sleep a little bit better. Helps with some muscle synthesis. All this stuff is packed into this little bottle in my hand, in the palm of my small, tiny hands that I would be ridiculed for if I ran for president, but I don't. I just talk on a podcast with Corey Clark, which is second best thing to do in the free world. Take advantage. Go to VitaminEnergy.com. Promo code again, Corey?
Warchant BOGO. BOGO, Warchant BOGO.
That's right. And that promo code, courtesy of our great friends over at Vitamin Energy, that are like a lot of you folks. They went to Florida State, but they're like all of us. They love Florida State, so they're hooking you folks up. Shake it and take it. Give it a try. Pretty sure you'll like it. VitaminEnergy.com, promo code Warchant BOGO. All right, Corey. So, in the quest for content, thankfully I didn't misspeak and talk out of turn, talk out of school. Did not want to do that. I have utmost faith, that everything's going to work out for guys like Jared Verse and Keon Coleman. It was a little bit dubious, I thought. I was a little mildly concerned when, again, I saw that Daniel Jeremiah mock draft come out over the weekend that did not have Keon Coleman in the first round despite having like 6 wide receivers. And then on Tuesday, our guy, Uncle Mel Kiper, drops his mock draft, and sure enough, he's got Keon Coleman in the first round, 15th overall to the Colts. That's strong to quite strong. He's got Jared Verse going 19th to the Rams. I guess the belief is like Keon would replace Micah's brother, Michael Pittman Jr., as like the number one guy as maybe his rookie contract kind of comes to a wrap. Keon at 15th, I know, again, it's the offseason. We're looking for things to talk about. I don't know how much of a roller coaster it is for a guy like Keon when he maybe doesn't see his name in one mock, sees his name in another mock. I think like 15th would almost be a little bit too ambitious for a pick, but when you see your name and that number, you're like, man, I'll take that, obviously. Would you be surprised? Like if I put the over-under at 14.5 on Keon to go in the draft, would you say before the 14.5 pick that doesn't exist or after the 14th pick?
I would say after. And I would say Jared, if you did that with Jared at 19, I would say before.
Yeah, man.
But you look in here, we gotta recalibrate things here for our lovely listeners, our dear listeners. You know, a mock draft in January is more informative and I guess more, accurate, potentially accurate than a mock draft in October, but barely, because there's been no combine and there's been no pro days. So that's where they really, the pro days matter. The combine really matters. They want to see these guys run in front of them, see what they're working with, the tools, what they measure at, how strong they are, all that stuff. And that just if you want to draft Keon 20th, and then he goes and runs a 4.58, well, you're going to draft him 20th. Like he hasn't done anything to worry you. But if he goes and runs a 4.84, you're like, yeah, okay, well, I don't know. I don't know if we want to spend a first-round pick on a guy that runs like a lineman. So that's where I think the combine comes into play. It'll be more crystallized, I think, when the combine is over, when the pro days are over. Like those mock drafts that come out a week before, and I'm talking about like Kiper and Jeremiah and those guys. Those you tend to be pretty accurate. The ones in January, they can be all over the map. But on your question to Keon, I think hopefully he's got people in his corner, that are telling him that people in his life,
advisors
on his team, his advisors are telling him, look, man, none of this really matters. Just keep preparing for the combine. But then also, he's going to be fine either way. Whether he wants to be a first-round pick, he wants to be a top 10 pick. They all do. But if he's drafted 34th, he is going to make an NFL team, and he's going to make a lot of money playing football. The ones I'm more interested in, not that you asked me about this, is the Fabian Lovitz and Renardo Greens and Jarian Jones.
I'm more about Jaheim, because you mentioned earlier in the week, and I agree with you, that it would be a really hard ask to tell Keon to come back. By the way, it seems like people are the lesser draft analysis has him projected to run like a 4.5. So I guess, if he runs like a 4.53, probably wouldn't be the end of the world for him.
Oh, no. If he runs a 4.53, that is a big check in his box. 4.53 is moving. And the reason I say that, LaMarcus Joyner is one of the fastest people I've ever seen on a football field. I talk about that Idaho play all the time from 2013 where he pressured the quarterback to get rid of the ball and then made a tackle 70 yards downfield. In a game they ended up winning by 60 points. Just an unreal speed. Ask Taj Boyd how fast LaMarcus Joyner is. But he ran like a 4.52. He ran in the 4.5s. 4.5 is moving, especially when you're 6'4", 215 pounds or whatever Keon is.
Right.
If he can be in the 4.5s anywhere in that range, that's going to be very big for him. If he's in the 4.4s, forget about it. That's a top 15 pick.
Yeah. But, Renardo, Akeem, Fabian, like those guys have no eligibility remaining. So,
right.
Curious to see where they go just in terms of how we valued them, what we saw from them, and what NFL teams think about their play. I guess, again, Keon with kind of being firmly thought about as a first-round pick, second-round pick, which top end of the second-round pick would be a financially prudent move for him to make versus what he would do in the college game. I really think it's only Jaheim is the only guy that might, I don't want to say any stronger word than might, but he might be the one player that you would think of if he would have returned, had the most upside to increase his value versus the potential of, unless catastrophic injury were to strike. Because again, like these guys have exhausted their eligibility. Johnny hasn't, but again, Johnny's what he is. I don't know. He could come back and not drop anything, and that maybe that reimagines what he could possibly be. But he's played so much football. It's just going to be part of his game. It might be just the way he's built. Having those long levers just might be a tough way to bring in some of these passes.
And I'm not sure he dropped a ball after like the Southern Miss game. He had a couple of really bad drops, and I don't know that he dropped one after that. Like he caught almost everything, including a huge catch in the swamp. He made a really nice catch for a first down in Charlotte. They didn't have many first downs that night, but that was one of them. Like he made
that catch against the Gators, like in the corner,
that's what I'm saying. The one that set up their first touchdown, I think that
Yep.
was a great catch on third down. That's an incredible catch. So he made. We know he had some drops, but I don't. The last 9 weeks, 10 weeks of the season, he caught just about everything he could catch. And Keon had more drops, honestly.
Yeah.
Keon had a bad drop against Florida. He had a bad drop against Louisville. That could have been huge plays that he didn't hang on to. So yeah, I don't. Johnny couldn't do anything. He is what he is. He's not going to run a 4.4, but he's 6'7", has a great wingspan, is very quick for his size, and I think I looked at the WalterFootball.com. There aren't because I wrote a story for the website about where these guys are in the mock drafts, and Verse and Coleman were the two main guys because they're the two potential first rounders. Nobody else is projected to go anywhere close to that. So, and there aren't many mock drafts that go more than a round or two at this point. Well, Walter Football went 3 rounds, and they had Johnny Wilson and Jaheim Bell being picked in the 80s, or like 87th and 89th or 91st. But Johnny's produced at a pretty high level. And I don't know that other than going for like 90 catches for 1,600 yards, I don't know there's anything he could do coming back that would have enhanced his stock into a first-round pick.
Well, he could do that though. I would think, man. I mean, 80s. If you're in the 80s, that's what. That's end of the third round, pretty much.
Yeah, it's third round. Yeah, it's end of the third round for both of them.
I mean, there's a significant chance if you're Johnny Wilson. I mean, you are the focal point of this receiving. I mean, you are the focal point of the receiving attack, and you would produce big numbers in this offense. But I don't
know. Do you think?
Played a lot of football too.
I don't know that Norvell has offenses where wide receivers put up huge numbers. He had Johnny for 2 years.
I think Antonio Gibson had a really big year at Memphis, but I think they do spread it out a little bit. But again, what we've seen from Mike Norvell is with Jordan, who has such a firm understanding of what this offense is and where the ball needs to go all the time. Maybe a guy like DJ just leans on somebody that's 6'7" when they might not know the offense inside and out the way that Jordan did.
But look, maybe he could have turned himself into a first-round pick. I think that's a big maybe. I think he produced at a pretty high level for 2 years at Florida State, won a bunch of games, made a bunch of big-time catches. I don't know that his stock could have gotten much higher, and he would have dropped some passes next year. That's not necessarily going away, and he also would still be the same speed. which I think is his biggest hindrance, is the speed, because he's 6'7", 230. I mean, they're not supposed to run that fast. He runs faster than you would think, and he's very quick off the line. He's really hard to deal with. He comes in and out of breaks real well. I'm not convinced he'll be a third-round pick. I think he could be higher than that. But going back to Jaheim, that is a good point. He didn't produce a ton this year. No. Because of the injury, because he played with a bunch of other guys. But I think you remember, Aslan, this is what they thought of Jaheim Bell just as a football player. Their first play in overtime in Death Valley against Clemson was a handoff to Jaheim Bell in the backfield. He lined up at running back, and they handed him the ball in overtime at Clemson. And then the next play, obviously, the first-round pick went and made a great catch in the end zone, and you won the game. But that's where Jaheim was for this team in September, right? Like, he scored the touchdowns against LSU. He had a running touchdown and a receiving touchdown. He made some great blocks. He showed what he could be. I think he had a touchdown against Boston College and should have had another one. Like, he was awesome in September. But then he did get banged up, and he wasn't the same guy the rest of the year. He still tried. He still gutted it out. He still made plays. But he wasn't special. He is a guy that if he played a full season in 2024 and was able to stay healthy, could put together a special enough season that he could up his draft stock by 30 or 40 spots, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet he could have. And I bet there was a real thought to coming back. But, when he declared, he didn't know who the quarterback was going to be. Yeah. He didn't know what this team was going to look like. Maybe now, looking at what this roster is and maybe getting feedback from some of these teams, maybe he would like to come back and be a part of this team because he could up his draft stock. Most of the other guys, like we talked about, only – who was it? It was just Verse, Coleman, and him and Johnny that left early, right? Yeah, so none of the other guys were going to come back and try to up their draft stock. They had already accomplished a ton at the college level, and they all did a lot in 23.
Well, Trey, but again, Trey's a running back.
Trey's a running back. Yeah, you're right. That's a whole different deal. But, yeah, so that's I think that's a good question there, Aslan. I think he is the guy that you wonder what he could have done for his if he gets drafted in like the third or fourth round. No. He could have come back and maybe worked himself into a second-round pick, perhaps.
Aslan's an idiot. Antonio Gibson, mainly a running back when he was at Memphis. He's a running back in the NFL as well. But they had DeMonte Coxey caught over 70 passes in 2018 and 2019. I mean, 70 passes each year, had 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns in 2019. And then their number one receiver in the 16-17 seasons, the first year that Norvell was in Memphis, was Anthony Miller. He had 96 for 146 and 18 touchdowns in 2017.
He had 96 for 146 or 1460?
1462. He had 96 catches for 1,462 yards and 18 touchdowns.
Wow. At Memphis?
At Memphis.
All right. I wonder, that sounds like a guy that you're throwing a lot of bubbles to.
And the year before that, 95 catches for 1,434 yards and 14 touchdowns.
Is this kid in the league? Did he make it?
I don't
he
think
had
so.
He had 190 catches over a 2-year span and 3,000 yards almost.
That is right. He is a free agent. He played for the Texans and the Bears.
Does he have any eligibility left? Miami's got the kid on his 9th year tight end. Can this kid transfer to Florida State?
Yeah. His rookie year, he caught 33 balls, 7 touchdowns.
Wow. All right. Okay.
Then the next year he came back with 52 catches.
You know what's interesting is I bet he is – that is crazy. All right, so he made a mark in the league.
You could be that guy, Johnny. You could have been that guy, Johnny.
No, he couldn't. Johnny's never going to be that guy because I think those guys that have 95 catches or 88 catches in a 12-game season,
screen game,
that is a lot of screens. And Johnny and Keon aren't those guys. Like, they tried to throw screens to Keon. I always thought it just wasn't working. That's not what he does. He's not one of those. He's not Ja'Kai Douglas. But I do think this year they might find a guy, and they're not. There's not going to be anybody on this team that has 95 catches. But couldn't you foresee a season or a year where, Destin Hill could have 50 catches, and 26 of them are screens? Or Vandravius Jacobs, or Ja'Kai, or the kid from Indiana. Whoever you deem to be the guy you want to get one-on-one outside with some blocking. I just think that's kind of disappeared. That disappeared from the playbook a bit this year, I thought. The bubble screen, the screens on the line of scrimmage. And, of course, it would to an extent because you've got two really big wide receivers that you want to hit down the field. But I wonder if that element of his offense comes back this year with a different type of receiving core.
I just want them to be successful and have fun, and I don't want to see a lot of screen passes. I'm not a fan of it. But I guess when it's executed well,
they're fun to watch.
Yeah. So we'll see if they do incorporate that more with these different bodied receivers that maybe are a little bit more better fits in that sort of attack. Over at MyBookie.ag, we got the lines for both games now because both games are set. We recorded a little too early on Sunday. We probably could have gone off for a good 15 minutes on talking about the Chiefs-Bills game. But such is life. Decided to do what we did when we did it. Kansas City at Baltimore. Baltimore giving out 3.5. Niners hosting Detroit, giving out 7. 51 the total points. If it's not raining, I'll go over on that. That would be my pick, my safest pick of the championship weekend, Corey. You have thoughts, feelings on either of those games? 44.5 the total points in the AFC championship game.
Man, I don't know why. I get what I'm saying. And I know Mahomes might end up being the best that's ever done it. I think Baltimore's a cinch to win that game. I think that defense is insane. They're playing like it's like Ray Lewis and Peter Boulware are out there again. It's nuts how good they've been defensively. And by the way, who would have thought that the Kyle Hamilton kid would be this good? Oh, wait, everybody that was in Doak that night. That guy's incredible. The Notre Dame safety that was so good that picked off. He's the only guy I think that's probably intercepted Jordan Travis twice in one game. But so the Ravens just, man, they look like a different animal. They just look like a different animal. I think it's Lamar's time. I think it's that team's time. And I know Mahomes is always Mahomes, but their offense hasn't been good all year. They were good this past weekend, but that was against a beat-up Bills defense that had a linebacker playing that was on the couch a few weeks ago. Like, I think the Ravens are too much to handle in this game, and I like them to win that game pretty comfortably.
All right, there you go. Check it out.
Lock of the week. That's the stone cold lock of the week.
Check it out over at mybookie.ag. Use that promo code WARCHANT for an instant cash deposit bonus. Promo requires $50 minimum deposit and rollover requirement of one-time the deposit total, including your bonus for withdrawal. For full terms and conditions, visit mybookie.ag/about-us. Corey, who can we give the most irrational expectations, sky-high expectations on for this upcoming season? Seeing the tweets out there, Patrick Payton sticking up for his guy, Joshua Farmer. There was a graphic, I don't know if it was PFF or maybe it was on 3, I'm not sure, but it had headshots of several talented defensive linemen, and it said, who's the best returning defensive lineman in 2014, or 2024 rather? And Patrick Payton retweeted it. Patrick Payton retweeted it and said Joshua Farmer.
Yeah.
Does he have a higher ceiling than Darrell Jackson? Is he the one singular player other than your quarterback that if he plays to the expectations of the super fan that has out there and the folks that talk about this team for a living could have the biggest impact on just how successful the team could be in 24?
No, I don't think a defensive tackle is that important. Not on the same level as like even a defensive end. I think if Marvin is or Marvins, whatever you want to call him, if he ends up being a 5-star type player, he'll have more of an impact than Josh Farmer. I mean, imagine that, because you know what Pat Payton is. He's good. Imagine having another really good defensive end that can get to the quarterback on top of the 2 dudes you brought in the portal. I think that's more impactful than Farmer. But, Farmer was pretty good this year. He was not Braden Fisk, but he could be. Like, he could be that. I want to see him take over games. He's had good moments almost in every game, and he's been very good. And I know at defensive tackle, unless your name is Ndamukong Suh in the late 2000s, they don't take over college football games necessarily. But I want to see him be more consistently disruptive. And it's in there. We've seen it. And if he continues to develop like Patrick Payton has, then yeah, man, he could be I just want him to be one of the best in the conference.
Okay.
If he's one of the best in the conference, to go along with Darrell Jackson, who I think at worst is going to be solid. And he could be more than that. Again, I'm telling you folks, in the spring, when we all thought he was going to get eligible, I thought he was the best defensive tackle they had. Consistently. I thought Darrell Jackson was the best guy they had. Well, Braden Fisk ended up being that guy. But if you get Darrell Jackson and Farmer to play well, that's a really big deal, man. But yeah, I don't know that I'd say he's the. I think what it was, the tweet was, it had 5 interior linemen named as like the 5 best in the country, and it's like, who's number 6?
Oh, the other, yeah.
And Patrick Payton said Joshua Farmer.
Okay.
So,
guy from Cincinnati, guy from Kentucky, guy from Notre Dame, Michigan, and Clemson rounded out the 5. So,
okay.
Farmer started every single game this past year for Florida State. Graded out at 57.4, though.
Yeah. Not
great.
Yeah.
No, maybe just the announcement from Battle's End that was quite, glowing. But I guess it is true, man. He was the first guy that committed to Mike Norvell once he actually, was firmly in place here at Florida State. It wasn't part of that class that got thrown together last minute for 2020. It was the first, 21 signee for them. So there's, that kind of, nostalgia, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, 6'3", 311 pounds, man, if he can be really disruptive, but it's hard to, I guess, quantify it. It's so much easier to see guys off the edge. We don't focus on what's going on between the tackles. But if he can play as excited as he seemingly seems to be for this upcoming season, and the people that kept him around makes you feel just good about what the defense can look like, certainly.
Yeah, and with the defensive tackle, it's so hard to judge impact through stats alone. Because, look, I'll be honest with you, I thought Fabian Lovett, when he played, was very, very impactful. But he'd only played 22 snaps a game, and I don't know how many tackles he had this year. I would guess 20, if that. Maybe a sack. Like, Fabian Lovett didn't have great numbers, but I thought he was a good player when he played. And Braden Fisk didn't have great numbers until the last, 3 games of the season. Maybe even the last game of the season. But he was good against Florida too, but there were times where he was just a wrecking ball. But you're just not going to put up, unless you're in Ndamukong Suh, you're just not going to put up huge numbers. But, yeah, man, Farmer and Jackson, when you hope Grady Kelly, the kid from Colorado State, and, yeah, I brought this up on headlines. There's no law that says Daniel Lyons can't take a huge vault and be a really good player, a productive player. KJ Sampson, second year in the system. Those guys can take leaps. That's what I want to see. I want to see these defensive linemen that you recruited take leaps, and maybe – don't let the Colorado State transfer get on the field, because he can't beat out the guys you've already brought in. That's a good problem to have, but yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have 4 guys at defensive tackle. I just don't know who that 4th one will be.
Joshua had 20 pressures, 16 tackles according to PFF, 20 pressures on 215 pass rush snaps. Fabian had 11 pressures on 168 pass rush snaps. Yeah, Fabian graded out 78.4.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was good.
Really good,
and he didn't practice at all the whole season, basically. Yeah. But I thought he was good when he played. I think they did a really good job with limiting his snaps. But
they managed him perfectly.
He was impactful. They did.
They managed him perfectly. And then looking at your story, which has been up on warchant.com for a few days now, so we can talk about it freely, openly here on the show. But you should be subscribed to it. You could have read this days ago and been that much more smart, that much earlier and quicker. That's how life works, everybody. I did a little bit more looking into, because I don't want to say research, but looking into on the Earl Little Jr. piece of this thing. And Michael Langston said it on the show Monday that he thinks that he'll probably help out at safety. Because at first I was like, all right, because he, in the limited snaps that he had in Alabama, he played slot cornerback. So I was like, all right, they're going to put him in the slot. Which next time we talk to Adam Fleur, I want to ask, why does it seem to be like you can never go from a boundary or field cornerback to safety, but for some reason slot to safety makes sense. I wonder what's part of the skill set or the responsibilities that seems to carry over. But yeah, man, if Earl Little is your answer at safety, and I looked at him as not a depth piece, but just in enhancing what you had at the cover corner spots. If he's your safety with Shaheem, and then we've got Azarie and who are we thinking? Greedy, is Fentrell actually, Fentrell still around. Those are your 2 top wide receivers or cornerbacks rather. Yeah. And then you think about, Greedy, maybe Noles goes back to backing up at that 3rd slot sort of position. That's a really good secondary, man. I don't want to say upgrade because you lose Renardo and you lose Akeem, but man, Earl Little can possibly be better than what Akeem was at least. So
especially the Akeem that we had in 23, because I talk about a guy that wasn't healthy much. That was him. He battled it out. He gutted it out, but he was another guy that was banged up for a lot of the year. But he was incredible in that Florida game, by the way. So shout out to him. But yeah, that's one of the things I really want to see. I want to see where Earl Little lines up in the spring, what their plans are for him. because I think he could be – there's a chance he could be really good. Again, he has to prove it.
He's had injury problems, too, in Alabama.
Yes.
You're hoping that maybe fresh slate keeps him a little bit better.
But he's been in that system for 2 years. He's got the pedigree with his dad. He was a big-time recruit. He's got a ton of confidence. That always helps. I wonder what they'll do with him. I wonder if it's the combination, right? Like, yeah, you could probably say Earl Little, if he's a slot corner, I don't know this, haven't seen it. It's sight unseen. Might be better, probably is better than Greedy Vance. But is Earl Little at slot corner and let's say Conrad Hussey at safety, is that a better combination than Greedy Vance at corner and Earl Little at safety? What gets your best players on the field? Because that, to me, has been one of Adam Fuller's strengths since he took this job, at least since halftime of the Louisville game in 21. His strength has been getting his best, most dependable players on the field together and keeping them there. Figuring out Renardo needs to be at corner. Figuring out, no offense, Travis J doesn't need to be on the field. Figuring out where does Akeem fit or where does Noles fit. And Azarie, how much time is he going to? All this stuff, man. He's done a really good job there, and I think that's what he's going to be looking for is where does Earl Little impact them the most that gives him the best 5 or 6 DBs on the field at a time. But, yeah, there's a chance, man. But especially, again, because Akeem wasn't Akeem for a lot of the season, that this secondary, because I think Azarie is an NFL, if he's not a first-day pick, I think he's a second-day pick. And Cypress, I think, can play in the league, but Cypress, at the very worst, is solid. And Azarie has a chance to be a star. I think Azarie is very, very good. So there's a chance your secondary, with Shaheem with another year, with the addition of Earl Little, I think there's a chance your secondary can be as good as it was last year. And remember last year, gang, it was like, 4th in the country in pass efficiency defense? They were great last year, and they might be just as good this year if Earl Little lives up to the hype we're giving him here on Wake Up Warchant.
5th team passing efficiency defense, 10th. Or sorry, 5th.
Pretty good. Pretty good. And I bet that includes the Georgia game.
It does.
Which it should not. So,
actually,
yeah.
You know what? I've had this tab open for so long, it didn't even include the Louisville and Georgia game, so they were 10th going into the Louisville game. They finished the season 6th, so go figure. They shut down Louisville so much that it didn't even matter what happened in the Georgia game.
Yeah, okay. Well, there you go. That Georgia game should not – they got to go back to bowl stats don't count.
Yeah,
just like they did back in the day. Yeah, unless it's a playoff game, those stats don't count.
All right.
I don't need Muschamp's kid – getting first downs. I don't need McConkey's crazy reverse counting as a real touchdown. None of that should have counted.
By the way, PFF had Johnny with 5 drops this past season. They had him. They gave him 2 against Miami. They said, which is not fair. I think one of them he got concussed on. And then he had a drop. They credited him with a drop. Where did it just go on my screen there? Against Florida. And then he had 2 in the opener against LSU. They didn't give him any against Southern Miss.
That's crazy. The Southern Miss one. Yeah, that's right. He did have 2 bad drops against LSU. Yeah. He still caught for 100 yards, but receiver got 100 yards receiving. But, yeah, he had a couple bad drops. I forgot about that. So he had the 2 bad drops against LSU, and then the Southern Miss game, I guess they didn't count as drops because there were DBs near him, but there were like 4 balls that he should have caught, that Johnny Wilson should have caught. Not a normal receiver, but Johnny Wilson should have caught, that he didn't. And then, what is that? So you said 3 catches the rest of the season? 3 drops
5.
The rest of the season?
Yes, yeah, after the LSU game.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
And then Keon, they only gave him 2 drops, both in the championship game.
I thought he had one against Florida.
I thought he had one against Boston College.
Yeah, he did. Well, again, it's a ball that you would expect Keon to catch.
Yeah.
It was a jump ball where he was in front of the guy, and he kind of dropped it, but I think maybe they don't count those as drops.
Yeah. So.
It's also PFF, so we take it all with a grain of salt, gang.
Schedule, the remaining of it, drops today at 5 o'clock. Corey and I will be live, I think. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
We'll
be live. I can't wait to do it.
What would be less advantageous for Florida State? What would be more dire? That's even a bad word choice there, too. So they got that Duke game on Friday, October 18th, that we talked about at the beginning of the show. Would it be worse if they had Clemson the week before,
yes,
or Miami the Saturday after?
Well, yeah, Clemson the week before, because you don't want to have to play Clemson and then have a short week with a road game at the end of it. That's not where you want to be. Miami getting an extra day to play Miami. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm actually, now that you said that, I'm really interested who that October 26th game is, because it might not seem like much, but you do get an extra day to prepare. You get an extra day to rest. That Clemson or Miami, if it's Clemson or Miami, that's one of those two games, they don't get. So that's very advantageous to get an extra day of rest.
Yeah, I botched it. I should have said at Notre Dame, then at Miami, or Clemson at home, and then at Duke.
Definitely not. You definitely don't want to play on a short week ever. I don't know if they have to. I think we're going to get like 3 Saturdays off, Aslan, 3 or 4 Saturdays off. I think the way the schedule shakes out, I think they get 3 byes because of the week 0 game.
Won't get that in the SEC and the Big Ten.
Nope. So enjoy it, folks. Enjoy it while you can. We got the Saturday before the Boston College game is a week off. You got the Saturday after the Duke game is a week off. And then I think you got, or at least that Saturday off, you get to sit on your couch and watch football. That'll be fun. We'll probably have 4 Saturdays where we can watch other teams around the country play, Aslan.
Are you definitely flying to Dublin, or are you looking into taking a boat out there?
No, I'm definitely flying,
okay.
I think. Yes, I am. We haven't bought the tickets yet, but I'm definitely flying to Dublin, sadly. So, the boats just take too long. It's like 6 days. I guess I would be back in time for the Boston College game if I'm on a boat leaving Dublin.
That's true.
You might have just talked me into it. We'll see.
I asked this because we probably have the oddest YouTube algorithm out there, because I think all of us have access to the Warchant YouTube account because we're uploading videos to it all the time for you folks. I'm constantly looking up random music, like random skate punk bands and rap songs. And then somebody went on a tear this past weekend looking up cruise ships. So I don't know if somebody's planning on a vacation. I thought it was kind of, it kept saying like the same, like it was like celebrity cruises. I'm like, oh, that's a Corey Clark move if I've ever heard of one in my entire life. And I started looking it up and I'm like, celebrity cruises, Dublin, Ireland. I couldn't find anything because I was like, is Corey like doing, because sometimes there's also stuff that I'll see in there about like working out, like certain exercises.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely, that's probably Ira.
It could be.
No, that's definitely me. I think the cruise ships might be me too.
Right.
But
which is fine. It's fine. Yeah, live it up.
I definitely looked up Dublin.
Okay.
Way back when this was all announced, and I think I even did it over the summer and maybe even over Christmas break. I'm like, what is the deal with these cruise ships? Can we get to Dublin? Yeah. But then also Stephanie and I are thinking about taking a cruise after the wedding.
Yes.
So that might have been another thing I was looking up. Probably was me with the cruises.
Okay. I'm like, is Tom going on a vacation? Ira going on a vacation? Like everyone deserves to take one. At one point I'm like, is this a Dublin thing? I'm like, oh, it's vacation planning. So shout out to those people. Are you guys going to stay the game's on a Saturday. We don't have to be back here until.
I'll probably stay. I think Steph and I are at least going to stay that Sunday and then probably come back that Monday, maybe come back that Tuesday. But we want to because I don't think we'll get out there early in the week, but I think we'll stay.
I think we are, man. I think they're going to practice out there, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I didn't think they were. That's what I think. Right. I think they were. They're leaving on Thursday, I think. So that's why I was thinking we would maybe take a couple of days after to stay in Dublin or the great country of Ireland.
Can't wait. And then Labor Day against the Eagles starting.
Come and get some Castellanos.
I misspoke. I'm like ACC opener. It's not the ACC opener. The season opener is the ACC opener, but I guess ACC home opener would be the Boston College.
There's still time for Castellanos to transfer.
Absolutely.
He needs to get out of there. Yeah, he needs to get out of there. There's no need. Once he sees what he's working with, he needs to go ahead and bounce and get out to, I don't know, man, anywhere. Go somewhere in the Big 12, buddy.
All right, we'll be live at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Before that, the Jeff Cameron Show, 1 to 3 o'clock. Check it out. Hit the thumbs up. Leave a 5-star rating and review, please. We would appreciate it. He's Corey Amazon. Thank you for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.